That should be you.
Oh, it's official now. Welcome to Glasgow Print Studio. Should put on a proper voice now. Like I said, we'll do a wee tour around the studio. This area here is for relief printing and mono printing, mostly. The Glasgow Print Studio is an open access workshop, so anyone can come and do a course if you've never printed before and gain the skills to work independently. Quite often it's sort of graduates from art schools who have a wee bit of skills, or if people have printed in other places, they can come and use the studio too. With these presses we'll print wood blocks and lino cuts, so for those of you who haven't made lino cuts before, relief printing is a form of printing where you cut away a relief on a block, and then ink is put onto the raised surfaces that haven't been cut away. The paper is then put on top of the block. You can use the back of a wooden spoon, works really well, but it's quite time consuming, so these presses just make it much quicker and sort of much more consistent when you print. And we can maybe sneak about for a while and we'll see Martin printing another one in a bit. This other press is also used for relief printing. If this one's a big fancy squasher, this one squashes things by passing a bed, which is this part of the press, underneath the rollers, with sort of incredible pressure. And you can see the other press that's in this area. It's called a nipping press, which is just on the glass surface over here, and that's more used for sort of book binding or putting lots of pressure on and keeping it there for a long time. I feel bad. Waiting for Martin to print. I'll show you the laser cutter that I was telling you a little bit about.
So these are all the tools putting the inks onto the...
Yeah, sorry, I should go into more detail. Once you have a wood cut that's ready to ink up, maybe show you one of mine. So this is the, I can show you on this press here. The double-handed. So this is a wood cut. This is the one that's been laser cut. I was talking about the laser cutter. Traditionally, you'd use cutting tools, which are just like really small chisels, that you'd use to strip away the wood. In the case of this, though, it's been a laser that's engraved the line, which sort of blows my mind. Lasers. We use rollers, like Helen said, to put ink onto the surface of the block and then squash it. These were printed on the Colombian press, or the eagle press as we call it, because it's got an eagle in it.
Right, that's why it's called eagle. Obviously you can see that you're getting the texture of the wood on these, so the material that you're using is then...
And so this is...
the texture of the print.
Absolutely. And this is the Western style, or the Western technique of woodcut printing, which uses oil-based ink. The Eastern sort of style or technique is using water-based ink, so it's much more, or it can be much more subtle. Maybe that's not fair, actually. There's subtleties in both of them, but if you think of that sort of wave print, the Hakushi, you might have seen, that's sort of Japanese woodblock, as opposed to the Western stuff, which came from sort of printing newspapers and printing books. And the Colombian press, I think, it was made as a typeset press, so it would print posters before it was sort of made for artist use, so it doesn't print posters very well anymore. But let's go through into the clean room, and I'll show you the other side. Pop in there as well. So this is a clean but sometimes messy room where artists will prepare their paper, cut things down, sign things, everything that's not sort of inky, and there's storage for members as well. And this is the laser cutter, it's our new toy. Come on round, you'll see. Jess Copesine, who was working in the studio until last week, was the laser technician, and she would do tests with cat face. So yeah, and have a look and a feel. So it's a really quite excited about this, so that's maybe why I'm harping on about it. But it's can be quite gentle and just engrave onto paper, or it can cut through perspex and plastic and wood. Yeah, have a look see. But and so with this machine, we're hoping that people will be able to make blocks that you can print sort of on that Colombian eagle press, and also etch onto perspex so that you can print an intaglio, which I'll explain a little bit about, so like an etching type plate. So it means if people aren't able to scratch something or like have different needs or don't want to use the etching process, for example, and I'll talk about this, which uses different chemicals, they can prepare their plates differently. So it's just sort of different options. I'll quickly show you the digital printing suite as well. This is your flashcard. So this is the digital printing suite. There's 4 large inkjet printers, and sort of more and more this area of the workshop's like used by the whole workshop for different photo processes that people use in the different printmaking techniques. So for this one in particular, prints onto acetate, which Helen would use to print a separation that you then expose onto a silk screen. And again, when we get to screen printing, I'll sort of show you the other side of that process.
This is what you were using for your yeah. So I'll make a digital file of a photographic image, and then it gets printed out on this, and then exposed onto the screens. And that must just be a little test bit.
Okay.
And this is a bit of here as well.
Yeah, strips. You quite often you'll make like a test strip to see what size of dot you'd like to give your image, or quite often images that are printed photographically have been split up into dots. So this one here.
Print last week, so I was trying to explain. This is the half-tone dot.
Half-tone, yeah. So like it's a little bit like it's got a mesh, or like it's a wee bit mechanical looking. If you look at newspapers, they're probably printed with either a half-tone or a slightly fancy half-tone if it's in sort of full colour. You can also print things with a diffusion dither, which is like a random dot, so it's a wee bit more organic but slightly less clear. Sort of each dot has its own attributes. It's good to remember.
You can really kind of stylise the way you print looks by the size of your dot. The finer the dot, the kind of less noticeable it is, and it more looks like a photograph.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something, I don't know, really appealing. I love the half-tone dot.
Yeah.
Like having it present.
Like if you get really close to a billboard that you usually see from a motorway, you realise that the dots are really big, and it's sort of only from a distance that things get vibrant. But yeah. I think printmakers are quite often drawn to dots. Dots are great. But so these machines also print on almost anything you can feed through them. So we have a really good stock of different rag papers, sort of fancy archival, wonderfully expensive papers that hold ink really well. So yeah. And there's sort of Photoshop and lots of different image editing programs that we have here as well.
Because a few of the prints that we looked at were digital prints, so I think they were printed here on some of these machines.
Yeah.
And the quality's just so.
Yeah, like the blacks that you can get with the digital printers now are incredible, and sort of the whole range of colours as well. But it's as well it's again that sort of thing of new technology and old technology. Quite a lot of people will start off with a digital print and then print on top of it, or rip it up and stick it down somewhere else, or like there's like another. Always think of each print method has been a different bag of tools that you can draw from. So, aye, grocery etching, that's the bit that I'm most excited about. Hey Stu, I'm gonna take a wee tour around here. Is that okay?
Yeah, is this your cue, your notes?
Yeah, on this recording. You don't happen to know when the Columbian press was made, do you?
When?
Yeah. I know John's told
that
me.
Press was about 160 years old when I turned up here, so it's almost 200 years old, that press now.
Wow.
And it still gets used, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you notice, it's that Thomas Long Press, Edinburgh. There was maybe 2 or 3 foundries in Leith, and Greg's of Leith was one, and the Long was another one, and they were based down in Leith in Edinburgh. So that's where they would have been made in about 200 years ago. And it was used last week.
Yeah, I was used this morning.
There you go.
Oh, amazing. I should introduce Stuart properly. He's one of the studio's master printmakers. So as well as having being open access, so anyone can come and use the facilities, we also publish or print on behalf of other artists or different galleries that get in touch. So it's a nice time at the moment. We've just finished work on a Ken Curry exhibition, which is downstairs. So a good example, so Ken came in and worked directly with Stuart Duffin to make a suite of etching plates, which the studio then prints. So sort of
I'm just about to pull another print off the press in maybe several minutes.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you're still around, I'll give you a shout and you can see it coming off the press.
Yeah, that could be.
But I'll warn you, it's when somebody else is watching you do that, it's when it all goes wrong. I actually see the printmakers nodding.
Yes, it works. It works. But let's move around here and we can get closer to the machines. So etching or intaglio printmaking. Intaglio is the sort of umbrella term that lots of different types of print making falls under. It's basically a plate or a substrate that has incisions or areas of roughness that are actually sort of etched into the plate or incised into the plate. And this is an etching plate here. It's maybe easier just to show you a plate. And so maybe not touch it because it'll have ink on it. But so these lines have been etched into the plate with acid. So these are made sort of in the traditional method of taking a brand new shiny plate and then covering it in a wax ground. You then scratch through the wax ground, and so that it doesn't require much pressure, it's quite a free drawing, as opposed to engraving where you need to sort of force and scratch metal out of a plate. You then put this wax ground that's got the drawing on it into an acid or a mordant, and then if you leave it in for a long time, the lines etch really deep and hold lots of ink. If you leave it in for a wee bit of time, it's quite light. And we'll maybe see once the print's been made, I can show you that and it might make a wee bit more sense. The areas of tone here is a technique called aquatint, where you float tree resin in a dust storm onto a metal plate and then fuse it on with heat. That sounds mad. I'll show you the box.
I've never done that and it sounds...
Oh, it's I'm absolutely mad for etching, and I've got these books called Magical Secrets. Like, I think etching's it's a wee bit mysterious because there's these boxes and flames and chemistry and stuff. But I'll show you it all in the acid room in a wee minute. But yeah, so and what this aquatint does is let you etch to different depths and get sort of different grades of tone. So once you've prepared this etching plate, I can maybe grab one out and let you have a feel at it. That might be better. Yeah, good. Let's see. Just under here. Perfect. Thank you. Cool. So you can come and have a touch and feel session. So this is actually a photographically made etching, where the artist Ken Curry made a painting onto an acetate, which we then digitised and printed out with different dots through the digital suite that we just saw. So if you have a feel, you can feel that the shiny bits are super smooth, and that these bits are sort of maybe difficult to tell, but these areas are a wee bit rougher than these areas. So what this means when we come to print it, just as Stuart's doing at the moment, you cover the whole plate in ink, and then you wipe it all off with a special material called scrim, which has got a really loose weave. And so it catches the ink that's just on the very surface of the plate and leaves it on the incisions or the areas of roughness. Again, I always think that the best thing with all the print methods to really sort of get it is to do it. But hopefully that makes sense. Once you've finished wiping the plate, hopefully, again, we'll see with Stuart, you put the plate on the press beds, just like with the relief printing, and then you put dampened paper on top of the plate. It's damp just so that the paper can get into all of the incisions and lift out sort of as much ink as possible. You then run it under the press with these fancy blankets, and then on the other side you've got a print that you can peel off and stick down. So yeah, that's etching. But again, this area, if anyone can use, you just come and do a wee course or get the skills. You can maybe come back and see Stuart. Amazing.
Slide that back in.
Oops. This is a wee bit like relief printing. This method hasn't really changed so much since it was invented sort of 400 or 500 years ago. So your Rembrandts and your Goyas, if you know these guys, sort of were pioneers, early pioneers. But yeah, let's keep going. Maybe pop back and see if we can catch Stuart printing. So we've got a drawing up area that people will use to make their etching plates or their lino cuts or their wood blocks, and sort of all the tools that you would need for chopping metal or preparing metal. Yeah, sort of we have everything in-house that you'd need to make etchings, screen prints, relief prints. Yeah. So maybe I should show you guys the acid room and then we can look at screen print.
And then switch between.
Cool. Sorry. So I'll quite quickly show you the acid room. It's not a place you want to spend too much time because there's wonderful fumes, even though there's really good extraction. No one's in any danger because the extraction take away all the fumes, but still it's a bit whiffy. We'll go in quickly and I'll show you them. So these areas here have all of the acids that we use. And so they're, like all of these things, are really safe as long as you sort of use them properly. So it's always gloves, and if you're here for a long time, you'd wear respirators and stuff. And then there's different sticky things, usually sticky black things that we paint on plates at different times to control the different techniques. So they're all here. The chap that was just here, Bob Shaw, makes amazing sort of strange surreal type work. And this is one of his plates here. He etches his plates really deeply. So if you'd ever see any of his prints, there's quite a sort of sculptural element to his work. But I'll show you that magical box. Dust. Oh, we'll stay outside. No, so the dust is made from tree resin, but like any other fine dust, if you're sort of around it too long, it's not very good for you. So we'll look. So in this box here, it's full of this tree dust, and
is that a particular tree?
Pine, I think.
Pine.
But I might be making it up. It's definitely called rosin. It would tell us on the box actually.
Is it called rosin?
rosin or resin, depending where you buy from. But it comes in its pure form. It comes in crystals. So I think it's possibly, yeah, I'm not too sure exactly which type of tree it comes from. But anyway, so you kick up a dust storm. There's a shelf in there that's attached to a spindle. So you'd sort of flap this shelf and it makes dust, and then it floats down sort of randomly on your plate. And then in the next room, there's a big flamethrower thing. It's exciting. Yeah. No, it's like the dust, as well as being magical, is also an explosion risk. So there's always like a closed door, so you probably wouldn't see it unless you were in. But yeah, and so this explosion risk. Just trying to make it mystical and exciting. This hot plate is used daily. It's quite hot. And these are the wax grounds that I was talking about. You can maybe pass this around. So this is called a hard ground, which is what Ken Curry used in the plate that Stuart's going to print. And so you melt this onto the surface of a plate and then scratch through it. And that's how you get this sort of pen and ink sort of scratchy line around. This other one here is called a soft ground. It's a wee bit sticky. I'll let you have a feel. This is a slightly different thing. So you put it onto the surface of the plate, and then you put another piece of paper on top, and then you can draw with like a pencil or a pen or like any sort of pressure you put on. The sticky one. I'll show you where a very good quality soap in this studio.
That's a wax?
It's wax, yeah. It's the same stuff, but the soft ground has petroleum jelly, has Vaseline in it, basically.
All right.
Which is why it's a wee bit softer. The softer one is really sensitive. So if you put this on a plate and then put your hand on it, you'd have a handprint as well. So it's sort of different bags of tricks again. And this thing here is a space that we smoke plates. So again, this is just to mystify it even more. Quite often, once you put a ground on your metal plate, you'll clamp it in these jaws. It's a shame I've not got a plate. Could I ask you to hold that?
Yeah.
Sorry. So you'd clamp your plate in here, and then with tapers, you put a layer of soot onto the front of the plate that makes your drawing more visible when you get to drawing up your etching plate. And this is like a really old school thing. If you'd ever see sort of books on the history of engraving, you'll see like a monk with a taper doing exactly this. But yeah, so that's more mystification for it. Oops, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I can maybe. Yeah. But that's pretty much it for etching. I'll maybe take you through to the photo fabrication room, and then Helen can maybe take over because she knows much more about screen print than I do.
Okay.
I come through. Come on right in. It's good. Yeah, so this is a nice room to sort of cross over because, much like the digital suite, the whole workshop, screen printers and photo etchers will use this room to expose. We've got 2 exposure units. This tabletop one and the upright one for larger scale work, and they shoot UV light at things, which is really important for different photo processes. But yeah, do you want me to go through screen printing stuff?
I don't mind. No, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
You're very generous of your time, Al.
Stick around.
Has anybody got any questions?
Yeah.
Al, just about the workshop or
Yeah.
any other?
How does it work with the fumes, with working with so much, the fumes, obviously?
Like all of the.
Should you wear masks and you just don't do it?
No, in truth, it's the extraction in the acid room, for example, is really strong. So when you're in there, you're not breathing in acid fumes. White spirit's an interesting one because in relief and etching, people use oil-based inks. So there is white spirit around. So it's if you're sensitive to it, it's advisable to wear a mask. But there's sort of enough ventilation, or not ventilation, ventilation rather than extraction. enough sort of space that fumes don't tend to build up. But yeah, like we do have a couple of members that are particularly sensitive, and so there's different steps you can take to avoid so many fumes. So, for example, you can clean up with vegetable oil rather than turpentine or white spirit, which keeps fumes down. You might have seen around the studio there's black boxes, and these are where we keep Terpsy rags, so like it's important that they're always closed, for example, so that fumes aren't building up. So yeah, there's steps.
Fire hazards are contained.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a funny one. It's funny when you start working with artists as well. Like people have their own ideas of health and safety.
The workshop manager Claire has a very keen sense of smell,
Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
just because it's her responsibility for the kind of general health and safety, and if there's kind of different an unusual smell or a build up of smell, she's generally on it, isn't she?
Claire's amazing. So yeah, there's one other thing I was going to say. That's gone. But yeah. But as well, that was it. There's if people are using a lot of solvent, there's a small hood there that's got really powerful extraction. So yeah, all of the equipment's there for people to use. I would say, but yeah.
Not that I'm into health and safety that much.
No.
I'm not. That. I mean, my husband works with wood all the time, and you're talking about like the resin and all that.
Yeah.
And I've forever said to him,
Wear masks.
Yeah.
Like
and
MDF.
even with wood and he's varnish it and all that.
Yeah. Because the
He
thing.
does have an extraction system, but I don't. I just think over a period of time, people are generally a bit lazy. I just think I'll be okay this time, that it might affect you.
Yeah, long term. I mean, it's one of those things. Like it's.
Because you do work with so many chemicals.
Yeah, and then like personally, I think the biggest effect to my health is the soap, because quite often it's a really good for getting rid of oily inks, pumice soap. So washing your hands like 5, 6, 7 times a day, like that can sensitize you to stuff like dermatitis. And so it's one of the things of working in my role that you're always trying to tweak things so that they're a bit better, that people have all the options. But it's a tricky one when there's so many different chemicals. And and who actually gives you this?
Thanks very much, Al. That's really great.
I should say as well, like the studio's open Tuesday to Saturday, and like you can always pop up if you have any questions, or the website's much better than it used to be. If you have any questions.
There's lots of courses that are run. Like I learned all my screen printing skills here. Like I never learned at art school. Stupidly. But so I did the beginners course and then the intermediate course, and then just joined as a member and came in and practiced and tried things out and got to the relative skill level that I now have. So it is a really, really great facility if anybody is interested ever in joining.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Britain's seems quite unique in its open access workshops all over the country. There's some really great spaces. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I just
Yeah, but I'll be around as well. So if you have any questions after.
Yeah, thanks, Al.
Well, maybe if Stuart's going to make a print, I'll maybe come grab you as
Oh,
well.
right, yeah. He might be just about to do that. Thanks, Al. Right, sorry, I've got poppy ears for some reason. I think it's to do with my pregnancy, but if I keep doing that, it's because I can't hear properly. Right, so screen printing. It's probably best if I get a screen. Maybe somebody could come and help me pull one out. Maybe try and find a smaller one. Oh, it's there. See it?
This one?
No, this one here. Okay, this one.
This?
Yeah, so if you just slide it along the floor is the way to carry them.
Put it this way or put it up here?
We just put it. We can just put it down on its side, on the long side, on the ground,
Down on its side, right.
like that.
Okay.
So this is 3 screen prints that I'm working on at the moment, and so the screen is just like this quite delicate mesh screen that's this yellow colour, and then what we can see here is the photo emulsion. So it's a light-sensitive emulsion, which is why we're in yellow, half light now, so that you can be working with these light-sensitive solutions and not expose them accidentally. So you coat your screen with this solution. Oh, right. Yeah, no, well, shall we go and see the etching be pulled, and then we can come back through here. I'm sure that'll be fine for a minute. Oh, no, that's all right.
This is John McKechnie, he's the director of the print studio.
Nice to meet you all. Yeah, have a good tour.
Yes, certainly, that's very important.
Understand everything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything good. Yeah.
Very aware how strange etching seems.
Yeah, all right.
So at the moment, Stuart's just preparing the dampened paper. So it needs to be the right balance between wet and dry. So it just needs to be damp, but not wet. And that's it.
You got a good view of it all going wrong from over here. The whole thing actually moves through this way. But basically what I'm doing is now my paper set up. And with etchings, you actually have to print a damp paper just to get a better impression. So I've got it lined up first of all. And the other thing quite often we do is sort of tissue paper on the back. And that's because, like I said, the paper is actually, your printing paper is actually damp. You know, your blankets will get wet and then they'll get stiff and all the rest of it, so you want to try and avoid that. And the other reason with the tissue paper in the back is just, I mean, printmaking is not messy, but some printmakers are messy, you know. And if some dork has managed to get ink in the back of the blankets and it sticks to the back of your print, it's not what you want. So the tissue paper can also prevent that from happening. So that's the paper trapped. I know exactly where the paper's going to go. I can let it work out exactly where the place is. Place the ink up.
So the paper's trapped under the roller, so which means that it won't move. So when Stuart puts it back down, it'll be in exactly the right place.
Because my paper hasn't moved, I know I can inflate that and the whole thing should line up. Okay, paper now. Have any of you made etchings before? Have you used a press like this? No. This design hasn't changed in 500 years. If you're lucky enough to get across to Amsterdam at some point, go to Rembrandt's House Museum, you know, Rembrandt etchings and all that. He's still got his press there as well as a lot of his etching plates and prints from his plates. And the design hasn't changed in 500 years. It's basically top and bottom roller. And this whole lot just gets squished when it goes through. And apparently these presses can exert upwards of 50 tons per square inch. That's the kind of pressure they can exert.
Don't put your hands in it.
I mean, there's only like a couple of square inches along the whole width of the roller at any time. It's a lot of pressure.
Oh.
Of Toole's Law. Of Toole's Law says Murphy was been optimistic. There you go. Another Ken card. Have you seen the show downstairs? You've had a look around the exhibition?
No, not yet.
You'll see this one in there. So.
Off the press.
There you go.
And so with etching as well, once you've made one print, you have to repeat the process of covering it in ink and then wiping it all down.
Yeah.
No, that is on
So it's quite a time-consuming process, even once you've got your plate done to do.
Yeah, so sort of every print. Like sure, I'll probably print between 10 and 20 prints in a day. So for an edition of 40, it'll take like a week or two to print all of the proofs and sort of extra prints that are outside an edition.
Yeah, and that's just a one-colour print as well.
Yeah. So with etching as well, I think quite often people think of it as a black and white sort of scratchy thing. It can also be like full colours and different. Yeah, it can be.
But you ink up all the colours simultaneously.
Yeah, so if you are making a multicoloured print with etching, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can have one plate with lots of different colours on it, or you can have more than one plate and then you'd use that trapping technique that Stuart had to make sure that you know where everything's sort of going to be printed sort of one after the other, and that way you can make really complex different coloured things. Yeah. The way.
Yeah.
Aye.
Great.
Yeah, right, back to screen print.
Back to screen printing. Thanks, Stuart. We're recording. So back to screen printing. So this is, as I say, this is the light sensitive photo emulsion that you just use this kind of trough and you pull it over the screen, and then there's an oven outside where you put everything in so it'll go in there for 10 minutes or something to dry. And then once you've got that light sensitive solution on, you then work with your acetates that we saw in the digital suite. So you kind of transparent plastic with the image in positive on it, which if you're working on this kind of scale, we can use this smaller exposure unit, and you put your acetates out on here, and then you would put your screen goes out onto there. That's fine.
Okay.
You'd have to get used to handling your screen. So I would have my acetates there, put it down, and you close the lid, put a vacuum on so that everything is being held exactly in place and there's no movement while the light's being exposed. And it's got clips that come down, and you can set it to different settings depending on what kind of image you've got. So I always get confused with the technicality of it. I always just do it on number 3. But that's kind of a general setting. If you've got a bit of kind of solid colour and lighter detail, maybe if you just had a stencil, just a kind of outline shape, you could bake it on harder, you could do it at a higher number, and that would mean that you've got a really clean shape. Yeah, that like the edges of the shape's really clean, but it probably wouldn't pick up as much detail. So there are like really kind of fine ways to work with it, depending on how involved or not you want to get. So then once that's happened, you take it off, and then you take it through into the washout area. At this point, you won't be able to really see anything on the screen. It'll still look like there's nothing there. And it's not until you take it in and start washing it out with the hoses that the ink that's not, the emulsion that's not had light exposed to it washes out. And therefore, you kind of, because can you see that these look a bit like, they look more like negative than positive images. So they're the opposite of your acetates. And that means that the light bits is where all the ink is coming through, and the darker bits won't let any ink through at all. And then the kind of in-betweens let a kind of variation somewhere between nothing and full ink. And then it goes back in the oven again to dry off because it's got all wet. And then that's it. Then you can take it out in the light because it's had its exposure through and show you where the screen beds are, where you do the actual printing. No, it's okay, it's fine. You have to, because they're quite delicate, you have to get quite used to carrying them, like...
So do you drag them along the floor, is that what you
Yeah, just kind of move them around like that, because you've got to be careful that you don't catch them on corners, because they can, you can see there, I've got a hole there that's just appeared from general wear and tear, but you can just catch it on something and the whole thing will just go and split, and then you've got to have it re-stretched, and it's probably about £50, so you kind of get very used to, they're quite light, so you get used to handling them and using them safely. But all these things, like, I guess we were talking about like what precautions you take, and like you kind of get used to doing things physically, because you know you have to take care of certain aspects of the process, otherwise it will just go completely horribly wrong. So if we go through this way, can you reach to slide it in that one?
This way?
Yeah.
No, I don't think, I think somebody needs to do it.
Do you want to hold that, and I'll...
My wrists are not very strong.
No, it's quite fine.
I don't want to.
These are the coveted places if you can actually get your screen into there.
Yeah.
There's so many. These are all member screens. There is so many members. Some people come in a lot, and some people probably haven't been in for years and years, but their screens are still here, so it's quite, sometimes it takes about half an hour to locate where all your screens have gone. This is the oven that I talked about. So you'll be just putting your screens in here between processes when you've washed things out to dry them, so it's much kind of quicker than letting it dry just in the air or with a hairdryer or something. I guess these are the great advantages of being in such a facility, that they can buy this equipment on behalf of all the members and then can all use it. And this is just the washout through here. So you put the screens go up in this big washout bay, and then there's like just quite a gentle water spray, and then this is a pressure water spray. So you would use that when you were washing out after you've exposed, but when you wanted to clean your screen, then you get the big pressure hose on, your ear defenders, mask. And these are all the various chemicals for, that's a decoating agent for taking off the photo emulsion, and then this is some horrendous chemical that, because you get these kind of ghosting images from where your inks have appeared, and you just get build-up of things on your screen, so you need to keep it clean, otherwise you might get an image from an old screen print on the new one if your screen's not clean enough. So you have to kind of look after your screen and...
You just use it over and over again?
Yeah. The meshes do, like as I say, I've got a hole in one of mine just from repeated use, but hopefully with that bit of gaffer tape it'll survive for a bit longer. So if we go back out into the big space, we can see the screen printing beds. So there's 4 different benches here. These kind of 2 smaller standard ones and then 2 larger ones. This one's relatively new. This large one is automated, so it's got an automatic hand, so you're not having to do so much physically. But it actually doesn't get used that much because I think quite a lot of people are scared of it. It's got pressurised air that is needed to motorise the arm across, and before you have to have a special induction to use it, and you get this like induction that tells you, you know, that pressurized canister could like explode, fire through a wall. So it generally builds up a level of fear in people. But you only need to use that bench if you're printing very, very large scale things. Like for most of the things that I'm doing, I use these smaller benches here. And what you do is you put your screen, you clamp it into these clamps here. So this moves up and down, depending on how big your screen is. And then you clamp them down with these. So you're just making sure that everything holds in the right place. Because with printing, it's a lot about keeping everything in the same place so that, unlike with etching, once you've printed one in screen printing in one colour, you can then just pull the ink through and through and through and do multiple prints in one go. So you want to make sure that your print's not moving between each time you're doing a pull. Maybe I should just put a screen up on there just to give you a general idea.
All the little dots on it, yeah. All the little dots on it.
Yeah, so it's got a vacuum in the bed that will hold the paper down when you switch it on. Put that on upside down. Purposes of this demonstration. So do you want to pull that side down? Tighten it up. And these have all got little clips on them that will just absolutely hold it in place. And then I'll register the paper underneath. You kind of do a process whereby you put the paper down and then you put the screen down and you're kind of checking that it's in the right position, because with screen printing, unlike etching, you print each colour separately, so I'll have a different screen for every different colour that I want to print. So I have to make sure I've aligned it up perfectly every time, otherwise that'll mean that things won't be registered properly. So you just use just quite a simple process of double-sided tape on little cardboard corners that kind of.
I'll come and stand next to you.
That you then just slide your paper in and it'll mean it's in the same place each time. You have this little table at the side where you've prepared all your ink and you've got your ink mixed up. You'll maybe have a bucket of water, some flash spray and some blue roll and a squeegee. Let's go get a squeegee. And so then you pour your ink onto the screen where you want it. So I will have taped off all of these so that these aren't getting ink in them if I was working on this one. And I've picked a squeegee that's approximately the size of the image I'm printing. I pour my ink down here. Then I'm just going to lift it up. You do what's called a flood, where you push the ink through across the image, and then you've got your paper underneath and you just pull it back across, and that's what puts the ink down onto the paper. Then lift it up, take the paper out, put another one down, flood, pull, do as many as you can before the ink starts to dry up and the image starts to degrade a bit. There are lots of different squeegees of different hardnesses and sizes. So depending on what type of image, you kind of pick the type. So a hard squeegee is quite good for pulling images that have got a lot of detail because it's a bit sharper. A softer one will allow more ink to come through. So if you've got like a flat background colour, you might use a softer squeegee. That would pull lots of ink through. So that's the general screen printing in 5 minutes. These big wire racks are for laying out all your prints as they go through, so you've got the possibility to print lots and lots in one go, just like the ink. The ink dries quite quickly, in about half an hour, so it is quite quick, so you can be moving on to your next colour relatively quickly, depending on how many you're doing. But yeah, that's kind of part of the process that I really like, that you can be moving through things quite quickly and seeing results happen.
You're just like a factory, aren't you? I suppose once you get going, just
it's often a lot of setup and a lot of preparation. Like you might come in the day before and expose your screens, mix your colours, cut your paper, get everything ready. But then you can actually print things quickly. But the whole process is quite kind of time consuming. Right, I'll put these back. Does anybody have any questions? In there, and then you put that in the middle of the screen and pull it across. So there's only a certain size that it's viable to pull manually. Bigger prints, it's much easier to use the arm and get more consistent pressure across them.
Going to give a talk.
No, it's like Kira's working away here. Just kindly said she'd speak to us for a few minutes.
Does anyone speak Swedish? No?
Looking for a translator.
Yeah. Well, this is in Swedish. So I'm working on a couple of shows at the moment, and the next project is British Art Show, which is like a traveling thing that happens every 5 years, and it's starting in Leeds in a month. And then it's coming to Edinburgh in March, and then it's going to Norwich and Southampton. And then the next thing after that is I'm doing a show in Sweden. So I'm still making pieces for that.
In Swedish?
In Swedish, yes.
So we talked quite a bit about the kind of making the separations digitally, but Kira, you can make them, you can hand paint things to be exposed on screens as well.
Yeah.
Which you kind of mix the two, really, don't
Yeah,
you?
I can show you a couple of things that I've been working on if you'd like to see.
That'd be great.
So this is literally just painting onto an acetate, and then when you expose it, it has the quality of brush mark, which I think is quite nice against screen print. Is generally comes across as looking quite flat. It still looks flat, but it looks less flat. So, I don't know. I often work with my own photography in my practice. So, say for example, the piece that you've seen, the toucan saying "Give a damn," the photograph is mine, and the text is borrowed. And that's something that I often do, is combine borrowed text with my own photographic imagery. So this is going to be going to Sweden. I've taken a series of photographs of my friends, either like looking at something or reading something. And then I'm working with this text, "Every woman a signal tower."
Where's that text from?
It's from it was originally "Every man a signal tower," and it was about sort of how you could use your body as a signaling system in the military. I can't remember what century, but maybe 18th century. And that's from a series of work I was making previously about the semaphore alphabet. You know, the sign signaling system where you use flags to indicate letters of the alphabet. But then for a show a number of years ago, I changed it to "Every woman a signal tower," which I really like as a phrase. So I'm reusing it. So that's, a photographic print behind, and then a very flat text-based color on top, the white on top. So it's quite simple, it's just 2 layers. And then these are just things I've been trying out. And then this is just like overlaying in another color, and it has quite a different effect of making the letters sort of stand up on the page.
Because with screen printing you can really work with the opacity of the ink, so you can like make it more dense so that you can't see the layers below, or as Kira's doing here. These inks are relatively transparent so that you can see the different.
So I guess I mean I'm thinking about that, how I want the piece to read. If I want it to be, this is much more like a poster. It's more didactic. It's kind of telling you something, and her image sinks back into that. Whereas the other one with the white, the text is slightly less legible, and I like that you have to sort of search between the two. So for me, this one is maybe not as successful. This is a friend who's an artist, and it's an image I took of her while she was making a film. Lite. I went to high school in Sweden, so I did have to get help with translation, but I do have a relationship to the language. Otherwise, I think it'd be a bit weird. And this is a little wilder, where I'm working with phrases from this newsletter that I'm really interested in, that was produced in Los Angeles in the 1950s and 60s, called The Irregular Bulletin. And it was produced by 2 artists who were teachers and nuns. And one of them was a screen printer called Karita Kent. Don't know if you guys have come across her. She's a pretty amazing artist. Anyway, and the phrase is borrowed from this newsletter. So it's consider it a valid job. And it comes from a longer phrase, which is about like, forget your occupational therapy attitude towards art. Consider it a valid job. And for me, that's a pretty pertinent thing for, it's still something that we need to talk about. It's not just a hobby.
So that's got a similar layer to the one that you're hand painting at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that's printed the background in this color, and then it's a printed fade. So you get 3 colors printed at the same time, and then with this really flat double print. Yeah. And to me, there's something kind of funny as well about what it says behind and what it says on top. Like warm, warm cash.
Where's the warm, warm cash from?
Well, I'll show you the other ones. There's another phrase that I was working with, which is, we prefer warm friends to cold cash.
Right.
But then a lot of my work is really sincere, and it comes across as being like a bit preachy. So, I wanted to have a little bit of like flipping that within the work, where I'll show you these. So it says, a number of these say warm, warm cash. And then, friends, warm friends, and I think you can read that in a couple of ways. Right? Maybe? And then this one. It's a little bit more brutal. So.
And so will these all be as a series in a show together? Do you often kind of think about things being side by side?
Yeah, definitely. I always think about how the pieces I make relate to one another and what they signal as a whole. So for the British Art Show, It's Cold Cash, Friends, Warm Friends, and Considered a Valid Job are being shown together on top of an enlarged, much bigger version of this photograph as a kind of like wallpaper behind. And then the Every Woman a Signal Tower prints, those are going to Sweden. Yeah. I think that's like, to me that's really interesting how you don't necessarily work on discrete pieces, but you're building up an image of like, or building up a kind of representation of what matters to you or what your attitude is to art, or like opening up a space for a dialogue about these things that's maybe not totally concrete. It's like an invitation to think about these things.
Yeah, because you often make kind of installations almost where maybe you'll have wallpapers as well as smaller prints. And
yeah, so this is a wallpaper that I've started.
Like less formal ways of bringing people rather than having 12 framed prints which have the divide of the glass and
well I think that's like, I guess partly I think about how print is used and like how print is like everywhere, like your sweater or billboards or magazines, newspapers, posters. It has this resonance like in daily life we encounter all the time. And so I think that's interesting, how it can be manipulated and exist in fine art as well as more kind of casual forms of presentation. And then, I guess I also think about like invigorating people when they come and look at a show. Like,
visual
like,
and messages and ideas to think about.
Yeah, and using print in a way that's like. Sometimes I do shows that are much more quiet as well, but not recently. Are you guys going to be doing some print?
No.
No.
We're doing the videoing is our kind of output, but.
Okay. Because there's some really awesome stuff in the Women's Library archive.
We had a bit of a look last week. We looked at some of the Guerrilla Girls posters and the Give Her Down poster. No, the Don't Call Me Girl.
Oh yeah, I love that poster. Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of posters do they have?
They have pretty good colors. They have some really interesting things by a group called the Poster Film Collective, which was an educational poster project in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, I think. Stuff from Greenham Common. And then I was really surprised to find stuff from the Chicago Women's Graphics Collective. I think posters used to be sent out in a different way previously, like before the internet. Collectives of printers would make things and then distribute them worldwide through the mail. So I think that's how, I'm not sure, I've never asked Adele and Sue how they got a hold of all this stuff, but lots of good things from Glasgow as well.
If you just received lots of posters.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Great, thanks,
Yeah,
Kieran.
yeah, you're welcome. Hope that wasn't too much.
No, thank you.
That is great.
Yeah, please edit.
No, it's just for the people who couldn't make it. Won't be publicly released anywhere.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Good of the group.
Yeah.
But yes.
Oh well, I hope you have a good project.
Well, good luck with your show. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes.
Great. Thanks, Kieran.
Coming up. Yeah. Have a good day.
Thank you.